Well, today we are taking a trip around the world, at least in terms of our hymn tunes. I don't know if you've noticed that. We started out in Moscow. We were just in Salzburg. Then we're going to Dundee. And finally, we will end in Aurelia, which is the Latin name for Orléans in France. So, ho, ho, ho. And of course, lest we forget, a trip to the Holy Land, to Cana of Galilee, where Jesus performs the first of his, I will say, public miracles, because Mom knows he can do this. So clearly, some things have been done around the house, maybe to make life a little easier for St. Mary. I don't know. I'm thinking of that scene in Sleeping Beauty where they're getting the cottage ready and the broom comes to life and everything's getting swept up. And anyway, just my imagination running amok. But certainly in front of a large crowd of people, this is the first of his miracles. And these stone jars are indeed huge. They're for the Jewish rites of purification. We saw one in Cana of Galilee when we were there. And it's big enough for a person to get into, because that's, how you do the rites of purification. And so that's a lot of wine. And I can't tell you how many times people have hilariously in their own minds made a joke to me about, can't you just turn this into wine? No, I can't. I never have been able to. I can do a lot of things, but I can't do that. That was a one-time thing. And it's a curious miracle, isn't it? Because we hear about all kinds of different miracles that Jesus performed, and we sang about them in that hymn, palsied limbs and fainting soul, putting the devil to flight, all things which had a much greater impact on people's lives than getting them sloshed at a wedding reception. But it's all about, this season, it's all about revelation, about seeing the light. And indeed, the opening hymn that we sang today, each verse ends with, "Let there be light." And that, on a side note, I love that hymn because it brings back a wonderful memory to me. Shortly after I came here as rector, the pilgrim window was reinstalled, and we rededicated it, the children and I, with holy water and prayers and singing that very tune, "Let There Be Light." It was a much brighter day than it is today, and I remember the window just gleaming, as it was beautifully cleaned and restored. And that's a good thing for us to focus on right now in this time and place, is let there be light. Because what's the saying? Sunshine kills germs. When there is darkness, remember McGruff the crime dog? Those of you who have a certain age. And I remember a commercial, and he was giving tips about how to prevent crime. And one of the ways a good way to prevent crime is to have a motion-activated floodlight in your driveway. Did you know? Because, as McGruff the crime dog said, shady characters prefer the dark. And it's true. You can get away with a lot of things in darkness, not necessarily physical darkness, but when eyes are turned away, when things are obscured, when facts aren't checked, we can get away with things. And so Jesus comes into this world of darkness, not necessarily, again, physical darkness, but darkness in all the different kinds of ways you can think about it: confusion, chaos, sinfulness, wandering, disorientation. And he brings the light of God, the true light, which lighteth the world, as we read a few weeks ago in the prologue to John. And that light had never been seen before by humankind. And it opened our eyes and gave us a whole new way of looking at the world, looking at creation, looking at the universe, reorienting us in a way that points our hearts and souls and wills away from ourselves and toward God. A way that opened for us a new path of understanding or trying to understand in the best way that we can, even though we all fall short and we all sin and fall short of the glory of God, as St. Paul said. But showing us the way to recognize what is true wealth, what is true love, what is true power. And Jesus tells us what those things are, and they're all the opposite of what the world would tell us. Now, many, many centuries have passed since the time of Jesus, and he lived in a completely different era, a completely different system of government, a different part of the world. And all those things have changed over time. Regimes have risen and fallen. People have spread the word of Jesus all over the world, and times have come and gone. I used to think that in previous time, maybe like 100 years ago. So if say you lived 100 years ago, and you watched all these changes take place around you. That, when you were born, your house was lit with kerosene lamps, and you had a horse and buggy. And by the time you were an adult, you had electricity and running water and an automobile and maybe even the radio. How amazing that would be to live in a time like that. And I think, boy, that won't happen again. And then I think about just the short time that I've been on this earth. Life is not all that different from when I was a child, but we have so many different things that, on the whole, I think are good, but which have complicated life all the more. Last night, I love to send memes to people, and I'm sorry if I do that too much, but I sent one to Jennifer because we talk about, she's raising 2 young daughters, and we're of a similar age, and how things have changed since we were a kid. Most notably how if there's like one snowflake in the air, it's a snow day, which is infuriating. But I sent her this meme. It's a picture of Michael Landon as Charles Ingalls in Little House on the Prairie. And it's like me explaining to my kids what it was like growing up in the 80s. And so, things change so fast around us, but what hasn't changed, I note, is human nature. And so that's really where the message of Jesus comes in, because it is as fresh and meaningful to us today as it was to people 2,000 years ago who lived in an entirely different universe than we do now. Yet, some things remain the same. Yet, even though for us Christians, Jesus turns the world upside down and inside out, those human tendencies to put earthly power and monetary wealth above the well-being of others still remains a really strong impulse. Looking out for number one is still a very strong impulse. Fear of the unknown is still a very strong impulse. And so when we leave those things unchecked and unchallenged, that's when we get into trouble. And I'm very proud of the fact that here at St. Mary's, we are a voice for the voiceless, and we advocate for those who can't speak for themselves, and we help those who need a helping hand. There's a lot of fear right now going around in various communities in our country, and indeed our bishop sent an email to the clergy yesterday saying that he was praying for us as we contemplated our sermons for today. because I'll just tell you, Sue and I have been working with people here in Tuxedo, trying to equip others, and I know we've worked in the past closely with Rural and Migrant Ministries, and they're working hard in Orange County to equip people to understand their rights, especially when it comes to the topic of immigration and immigration status, because there are many, many people in our community, in our county, locally, who have dicey immigration status, but who have been here a long time and who have worked and have been law-abiding citizens and contributed positively to our communities. So how do we help those who can't help themselves? That's something that we have started working on and will continue to work on as the days and months and years go by. That is a way, I think, of saying, let there be light. Let there be light to people who sit in darkness and don't know what to do, who are fearful because they're in darkness. Enlighten their world, enlighten their minds, and give them courage. That's one way to do that. And also, a lot of us, not me, I think just because I'm as old as I am, a lot of people are very distraught right now over the fate of something as, I think, simple as an app, TikTok. I don't use it. I've never felt the need to use it. But I see clips of grown people like weeping, literally weeping at the thought of losing this thing. And I thought that was ridiculous. And it was pointed out to me that there actually are, for example, communities of people on this platform that have children with special needs, and they share it's sort of a pool of knowledge for them to work these things out. I was thinking it was just a bunch of people making cat videos and dancing, and who cares if that goes away? Because there are many other ways to get your cat videos. But this is another thing. People are looking for light. They're looking for connection and community. And I get that there's a value in being online and being able to connect with more people than you would normally. So say I can connect with someone in a different country or across the country in California or Hawaii or somewhere far away from me. And that's good, but it's not the same as getting to know someone. During COVID, of course, we all had to learn how to do Zoom, and we had a paid account here at the church, because you have to pay if you want to go over, I think, 40 minutes or something like that. And it was one of the most satisfying days of my life when I canceled that account. But we still have it, and it's still a useful tool, and this was something we struggled with in the College of Deans, because it is a stretch for all of us to get to the cathedral once a month. I personally like it, but we came to the settlement that we would do some meetings at the cathedral and some online. And I personally find it difficult to connect with people on Zoom. I can see you, I can hear you, I know what's going on, but I'm the kind of person that I need to have like physical cues, in a conversation, so when I can jump in. I need a pause in the sentence and a breath, and then I feel comfortable. Anyway, enough about that. What I'm getting at is that people are weeping over the loss of an online platform, but what's one of the best things we have to give here at St. Mary's and throughout the church, but community, connectedness, care, support for one another. I don't know if you saw my now infamous interview by the Britallions on Facebook, online, but that's one of the things we touched on, is the importance of community here at St. Mary's and how that drives us. So just in closing, as we think about going into our annual meeting and talking about the things we have done over the last year and the things that we'd like to do in the future, and in this season of Epiphany, this season of growing light, we're just about to sunset at 5 o'clock. Yesterday it was at 4:57, so I'm really looking for that milestone to happen. In the season of growing light, let there be light. Let us be light. Let us show the light of God to the world. That light of love, of connection, of community, of care, of support, all those things that we are, that we have been for all these years. And as I said in the interview, that we think is just so totally obvious, but it's not to everybody. So keep on showing that light. Don't hide it under a bushel. Put your light on a lampstand so that all may see it. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.